Welcome back to another edition of the 2021 Here to There Network Summer Spotlight. Last week's episode was very informative for me. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed getting a peek into the lives of somebody who is living overseas and dealing with some stressful situations. And so as we segue into this week's Summer Spotlight, we have Mark Painter with us today. Welcome, Mark.
Hi.
Thank you for being on the show.
Glad to be here.
And let us know who you are. What do you do?
Okay. So like I said, my name is Mark Painter. I'm the executive director of Bay Meadow Center for Hope and Healing, which is essentially a Christian social services ministry. I'm a pastoral counselor and a board certified Christian counselor. So counseling is my thing. So our ministry is pretty much dedicated to anything that has to do with supporting our community spiritually and emotionally. That's me.
Excellent. What are you? You're a licensed counselor, is that correct?
No, actually, I'm a board certified Christian counselor through the International Board of Professional and Pastoral Counselors, International Board of Christian Counselors. I'm sure you've heard of them. So I am not a licensed counselor, and that's intentional.
Right. So I mean, that's more of a legal thing. From the lay mind, I mean, you're a counselor, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. So I think we're here to talk about anxieties, traumatic stresses,
Sure.
things that the shots from last week would have been dealing with, and how we as the church can rally around them and be prepared to care for them well. What would you say to a church that says, how do we get started with that?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's important that a church understand that there's more to stressors, more to this thing we call PTSD, or post-traumatic stress than those things that they might outwardly see or that might be offered from their missionaries. There's going to be many things that are kind of hidden. And so generally when we meet a missionary, and I've been talking with you guys about this for some time now, generally when we meet a missionary, we bring them into our home or we bring them into our church and they're standing at the pulpit. They're telling us about all the great things that are going on. They're not telling us about the struggles that they're having or the fears that they're experiencing. And so one of the things I think that churches can do is, first of all, have an understanding or acknowledge the fact that there's probably some other things going on in this missionary's life than these things that are being presented. How do we know that? Because listen, if I'm the pastor of the church, I'm not standing up and telling the church the stresses that I'm under. Now, I might, if I'm using it for the purpose of getting across whatever my message is for that day. But generally, I'm not going to the church and saying, listen, I'm struggling over the last couple of months and I need your help, So what's happening is, obviously, I'm sitting down with deacons, I'm sitting down with people who are a little bit concerned about me that I have a personal relationship with. And guess what they're able to do? They're able to dig a little bit into what's going on in my life. So with all that said, what do I recommend to churches? Dig a little bit, get involved with your missionaries, get to know them. Even if they're not your primary missionary, if you're not the sending church, get to know them, make a friend with them, get a little deeper.
That's good advice.
Sure.
Dig a little bit, see if you can draw out some of those things. Of course, missionaries, as we know, oftentimes are resistant to just divulge that information. Like the pastor's not just going to give it out either.
No, he's not. Right.
So how do we, how do we get them to that place? And how do we, do we just know that they're dealing with things, or how do we find out what it is that they may or may not be struggling with?
Sure. Well, first of all, one of the things that we have to make sure we're doing is know where our missionary is coming from. Where are they serving? Do we know anything about the country? Do we know what's going on in the country? It's a little bit difficult to find out what's going on in countries, because a lot of times you won't find on the media, what's going on in Haiti. I remember when Haiti went through all of the fighting and that's probably still going on. We knew by talking to our missionaries what the depths of the fighting that was going on, the gangs and that kind of thing. We knew what was going on only because of our missionaries. We didn't know what was going on, through the news media. So one of the things that we need to do is give them an opportunity to talk. And this is really what I want to talk about today, is a thing well known. It's been around for a long time, called narrative therapy or talk therapy or storytelling. And one of the things that I recommend that churches do is get their missionaries to tell stories a little bit beyond those stories that they would tell from the pulpit as they're doing fundraising. Okay. First of all, just a little bit about PTSD. PTSD generally exists because there's an occurrence, a trauma, an acute trauma that is sitting in a place in their mind, not in storage. Generally, when we go through something, when we go to a Christmas party with all of our family there and all of our friends there, by the time we've left that party, we've stored all of the components, all of the things that happen into their various places in our minds, those places where they belong because they're associated. The problem with an acute trauma, or even a trauma that has happened over a long period of time, is it never gets stored because it's a standalone situation. Okay. So imagine for a minute that you were in a tornado, okay, and you watch the tornado knock your house down. The best you're going to be able to do with that is store it with the Wizard of Oz, okay? But that doesn't remove the trauma, because listen, if you're storing it with the Wizard of Oz, there's a bunch of other stuff to get scared of, okay? So anyway, monkeys with wings, that just kind of freaks me out, okay? But
and water, be afraid of water.
Yeah, exactly right. So obviously, then this thing hasn't gotten stored. And part of the reason for that is we've taken that thing inward, okay? Some of the things that happen to us that cause these acute stressors that hang around with us are things we don't want to talk about, okay? It might have been, a sexual assault, for example, not to get too crude. But listen, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to give that information out to anyone. Well, guess what? That's very similar to a missionary who doesn't want to talk about maybe the struggles they're having in their marriage because they're afraid they're going to, guess what? Get yanked back to the United States to go through marriage counseling and therapy and maybe not even get to stay on that site, which, by the way, is another trauma. Okay. So, because they've gotten yanked off their site.
If I might interrupt for a second,
Sure.
based on that, what do we tell the church so that that's not their first action is not just, well, we have to get them home?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, we have to realize that, guess what? I, as an employee of the corporation that I work for, the ministry that I work for, I go through stressors. But guess what? I've got mechanisms to get me through so that I can shed those, or so that I can compartmentalize them or take control of them and be able to function in my job. Missionaries are no different, okay? The only difference is they're not right here at home. They're somewhere else. Well, we've got great ways of communicating now, okay? We can help somebody through their stressor and keep them working. Now, listen, I know the church automatically grabs a hold of this idea. This person is a missionary, which is someone higher than or somewhere equal with a pastor, and they got to be perfect in the minds of everybody, and in some cases in the minds of the pastor. What the pastor and the sending team needs to understand is this person's a human being exactly like them. So guess what? Let's care for them and treat them, acknowledge them exactly the same as we acknowledge anybody in the church. Let's get them through the stress. Let's let them know that we want to do that. And if we have to, we might have to bring them back and get them some help, because guess what? The help that we need to give them might be here, although a trip to the Netherlands would be kind of nice. Okay.
Right.
But,
yeah. Where are the missionaries in Fiji that need help?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Send me there. Okay. I would love to go help them. But the idea is we need to let our missionaries know that we understand them. And Brian, you've heard me say this before. Member care is about caring for the members, the whole staff, and that includes our missionaries. We need to make sure that we're including them as part of our staff, and that they know they're going to get treated just like anybody else. So if we treat the associate pastor real bad, that's what they can expect, you know. But no, the truth is they need to know we love them and that we're going to do whatever is the best for them. And you know, that's just kind of the way we need to attack that.
Right. Yeah. So sorry to interrupt your train of thought.
No,
I don't know if I torpedoed that now.
Okay.
I know my understanding is that, I mean, up to a certain level, you want to treat them, they're still in the circumstance that they're in, right?
Sure. Right.
So that they don't come back to the States and everything's calmed down now, they get treated, they go back, and then they're back into the blender again. And
yeah, and so
nothing's changed there.
So one of the things we need to do is we need to look a little bit deeper into, so I talked a little bit a minute ago about making sure we know what's going on in the country, okay? But one of the things we can do is we can go and find out what kind of things trigger sadness for them, what kind of things trigger anger for them or fear for them. Listen, it may not, I don't want to get all Freudian, we talked about this earlier, but we may have to get back into their past a little bit, even if it's the first week that they were, you know, on site. What kind of things create fear for them, okay? And so if we're going to have a good conversation with them to kind of get an idea of how we can help them relax, settle down, and then kind of deal with whatever's going on today, how to figure out why is this little thing, this little tiny thing causing such great anxiety in them. Let's go back and see if we can't find out what the earlier problem is. So with PTSD, we tend to have those things that are kind of mixing around, getting involved in places that they don't belong. If we can find out what some of those early circumstances are and help them deal with them, we might be able to get them easier through the things that are going on now. Let me give you an example. So the first couple of months that a missionary is on site, they're not finding themselves blending real well. They're not finding themselves part of the community that they're in. And eventually they start to reckon with the fact that they're different, and that's probably going to remain that way. Okay. Well, so now a couple of years have gone by and they're still considering themselves different and still feeling like failures. Okay. So right now they're a little sad, they're a little blue, they're a little scared, there's some fear going on because they're afraid they're going to get yanked from the site, because guess what? The sending unit said, or the sending organization said, listen, if you don't get somebody saved in the first 6 months, we're going to yank you back. But it's taken them 2 years and they're not even blended with the group yet. Now, I've exaggerated that. No one says that it needs to happen in 6 months, but there's usually some type of an expectation.
There will be expectations, certainly. Yeah.
In any job.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, right. But so if I've had that early fear that I'm not blending and that's a fault of mine, it's a failure in me, I'm still probably experiencing that. And now when I start to have some other circumstances that are coming up, that current circumstance gets exacerbated by that previous circumstance. So if I can dig that out of somebody, if I can through debriefing, have a conversation with them and say, you know, tell me about the first couple of weeks that you were there, the first month that you were there. What were some of the things that stressed you out then? They're going to tell me what those things are. Why? Because they feel like they're in the past, and they aren't. Okay, but we're gonna deal with that in a minute. Well, you know, I've just really been stressed out because I had been stressed out because I wasn't able to blend in. But I'm dealing with that now. Okay. Well, what have I done? I'm starting to see now that what did they just say? I'm coping with that thing. Okay. Well, what that's telling me is that's a continuing stress in their life and in their ministry that we need to start working on. How we do that depends on the individual.
Right.
So, you know, we can, you know, get involved in kind of coming to some understandings on what it looks like to debrief, okay, through some debriefing techniques that you can learn from, you know, Barnabas has got a debriefing program. We actually have a program that we've recommended through the AACC that will help people start to learn some psychology and get accustomed to even what PTSD is.
What's that program?
Well, that program, it's the Certified Mental Health Coach program.
Okay.
It's taught through the AACC. It's a Christian program, the American Association of Christian Counselors. So it's a Christian program. A lot of affiliation. Well, Light University is the school. Actually, it's kind of an exciting program because of we're using it now as we run somebody through counseling. As we are concluding the in-office or the in-session counseling, and we've taught them the tools that they need to move forward in their life, we'll use these coaches, these certified mental health coaches, to coach them now for the next several weeks to use those tools that they've learned. That same thing can be translated to missionaries. Pastors have a conversation with someone. They spend 2 or 3 days with a missionary, maybe a week with a missionary, kind of unlock some potentials, learn some coping tools. I'm not a big coping fan, but learn some coping tools. Then the mental health coach can continue to work with them while they're back in their country of service to help them keep moving forward in their program. Now that's kind of an exciting deal because it's a 40-hour program that the education is. So it's almost an associate's degree. Okay, it's $2,400 for the program, but here's the good news: any church can get a scholarship that makes it only $56 for them to go through. Okay.
From 2,400 to 56.
2,400, yeah. So the idea is they want to get as many churches involved in having mental health coaches. Here's the problem that churches have, and this is another area of research. I talked to you about this last week that I'm working on, is that churches tend to kind of back away from mental health. This program is intended to bring mental health capabilities back into the church's abilities. So the idea is these are people that can come in to a mental health coach and say, listen, my wife and I aren't having, marital problems, but to be honest with you, we're having a hard time renegotiating our relationship based on this new job that I have. Okay. We don't know what to do. And, do I need a marriage counselor? Do I need to talk to the pastor? What do I need? This person can kind of help guide them that direction. Think about your missionaries. As your missionaries are coming back, the pastor, the missionary team may not have a person who's well equipped to spend that time they need to spend with the missionary to kind of find out some of the things that are going on. This mental health coach can be trained specifically to join their MST, right?
That's right, missionary support team.
It's been a while. Those of you who don't know, as I used to be with Here to There, and so I learned all of this stuff, especially the JJU thing. Brian can tell that joke. And anyway,
you still got it wrong,
right? If you can get them trained and have a pretty strong understanding of both psychology and biblical counseling, spiritual issues, now you have somebody that can really do a great job in supporting people beyond what the church can do all by itself. Churches have tended to become more kind of against the concept, especially evangelical churches, kind of against the concept of the idea of psychology because it's too hocus pocus, doesn't really pay any attention to spiritual aspects.
Or we just need to pray more, right? And it'll fix everything.
That's right. Pray, you just have a sin problem, sir. Okay. We're bringing you back. These guys can help take them through that. But listen, just also having some local resources to be able to get your missionaries involved with somebody who literally cares about them. And you can find that. Churches can find that. Go out, interview psychologists, interview social workers are a great line of attack for that. Licensed clinical social workers. Because
they're used to working with people on that level, right?
It's what they do. They deal with relationships, that kind of thing. So go out and find. There's plenty of really awesome Christian social workers in our town. You can find them in yours too. So we don't have to go to the Netherlands to get them. Although again, I'm willing to go.
Well, okay. So we have the narrative therapy. Is that kind of like just like a baseline, just so that they talk it through and they talk it out? And then there's the next level that you were just talking about, which is that mental health coach.
So anybody can do narrative therapy. Right. Obviously, if The optimum situation is somebody's has been trained specifically in narrative therapy or storytelling, which I have.
And how to ask the right questions.
Well, yeah, it just who can keep an eye on. It's not so much asking the right questions; it's keeping an eye on the reactions.
Okay. So
here's the deal.
it's more about what you're noticing and through their telling of the story.
Yeah, what it's, seeing the psychologist sitting back writing those down.
Right.
These are 5 things I need to deal with. But listen, this is as simple as this. Give the missionary a platform to talk candidly about his or her experience. Okay. Listen, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a teenager who went on, their annual trip for 5 or 6 days. We're talking about, you were talking about somebody who's in and out, gone for 30 days, coming back, continuing to do fundraising and, whatever education, whatever might need to be done, and then going back for a month or 2, or somebody who's out on site and comes back every 2 or 3 years for fundraising. They can be run through this tier of activity that, whether they have problems or not, whether they have underlying things or not, this is still a great platform for them. So let's look at what this looks like. So the first thing that someone would want to do is have the individual come in and spend some time with a pastor. Okay, pastors learning to ask smart questions like, hey, tell me some of your highs and some of your lows. We were just talking about that a little while ago. Tell me your highs, tell me your lows. Somebody will tell you their lows, and like you acknowledged earlier, sometimes they'll just unload. That low is something they want to get off of their chest. Okay, now you take them and you get them involved with your MST. Okay, maybe you have a counseling group, probably have somebody who is in charge of the counseling component on your team. Okay, they come in and they have that same conversation with that individual. Tell me about your highs. Listen, we want to learn. We want to learn about you, what's going on, so that we can make sure that we support you well, that we support our other missionaries well. So tell me about your highs and lows. It's a good approach to stick with. Now, you know what? I would really like to get you with our whole team, okay, and let you tell the whole team what you just taught. It's still, we're private. It's still
still a small group of people.
Yeah, and we're not going to blow it out to the church and tell them all the things.
It's not in the newsletter.
Right. I would really like our whole mission team to hear this, or our whole missionary support team to hear this. Okay. They come in, they tell it, it's kind of like a group session.
Yeah.
And finally, I would love for us to be able to get all of our teams together to hear this and to hear from you. Now, here's what's happening while all of this is going on. They're starting to take these various little, traumas that they've experienced, and they're starting to compartmentalize them, actually putting it with the Wizard of Oz, if that's where it belongs. Okay. And I know I'm kind of joking, but the truth of the matter is they may have seen death. Okay. And that's just kind of lingering out there. Okay. For me, not to talk about myself, but, I've experienced death in the military. Okay. And, I might go off in another country and see a child who's died, or see someone else who's died. And that just kind of sits around in here, or I can kind of figure out how have I even experienced this person dying? In both of these cases, I experienced death through my service. Now I've compartmentalized it. If I can acknowledge that I've experienced that death through my service, it gets placed with traumas that I've experienced through my service. Okay. It's no longer just floating around affecting everything else, causing me general anxiety all over the place. All right. So that's kind of a quick little snapshot view of what recompartmentalizing looks like in narrative therapy, but that's exactly what you're trying to do. I don't need the church to understand that. All I need them to do is know that if they give this person an opportunity to talk about more than what they're going to talk about to raise funds, I'm giving them an opportunity to unload and compartmentalize their traumas. It's as simple as that.
So, I mean, yeah, just a basic, just telling the different groups the story is them doing therapy.
It's exactly right. It's narrative therapy. Yeah. But the church has to be intentional about it.
Right.
Okay? This has to be a 4 or 5 tiered intentional process performed by their MSTs to make sure that each time a missionary comes in, even if it's just they're in for a couple of days, how many times can we get them to tell their deeper story? There you go.
Mhm.
We just solved all of our missionary problems.
Well, I don't disagree with that,
Right.
but if you could even guess, I mean, I don't have any numbers or anything, but I mean, if we were able to do that, let's just say that for, hypothetically speaking, that automatically just happened across the board for every evangelical missionary in the world,
Okay.
all of a sudden had that level of support. Uh, if you could even give a percentage of how many fewer missionaries would have to return early based off of emotional anxiety things. I mean, I know it's all a hypothetical thing, but
Well,
I mean, just the impact that might have.
Actually, I'd have to dig back into AMPed, the Here to There program, but AMPed has those numbers in it.
Shameless plug.
Was that?
I said right. Shameless plug.
Well, I was trying to figure out how am I going to do this. Okay, it's got to happen somewhere. But there's a large number of missionaries who will come back out of the field and never go back. And the number was huge. I think it was well above the 60s, but it might have been in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Percentage of missionaries who come back on respite. And when we say respite, that's code words for I've got to do something back in the country. It's I'm having a health problem. Listen, that person may not go back because of that. Mm-hmm. I'm having fundraising problems. That could continue to be an obstacle for them. But more important, those missionaries who feel inadequate, unsafe, unheard, unfulfilled, whatever those cases may be, this has got to improve the numbers of people. First of all, if they don't come back on respite, if we can manage them in the field, then we don't have to worry about this anyway. So what we'd have to do is we have to figure out how can I do this narrative, this storytelling therapy while they're still in their country. Okay. Yeah. Well, again, if they're in the Netherlands, send me. Okay, I'm fundraising for that, by the way. I'm really looking more for Boca Raton, but
we'll start a GoFundMe for you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Anyway, the point is if we can figure out ways of listen, who's the narrative therapy also for? It's for the person who's trying to figure out how do I got to help this person. Mm-hmm. Okay. If we truly want to take care of our missionaries, we need to be hearing from them anyway. And if we're being intentional about getting their narrative, it's informing us as well. If we can do some things by getting their narrative while they're in country and find out some of the things that they're dealing with, and we can keep them from coming back on respite, then certainly we're increasing the numbers of missionaries that will stay active in the field for the long term. Those who are coming back, for whatever reason they're coming back, listen, we need to listen to them anyway. They need to know they're loved. They need to know that they're adequate for, in what they're doing. Their livelihood has to be something that makes sense to them. Listen, we're community people. God made us that way, okay? We're in community with each other. We hope that we're all in community with Him. And if we are, we're loving on each other. We need to be listening and learning, not just listening and learning, but listening and loving, okay? Why do our missionaries want to go back into the field? Because they know that they're appreciated. They know that the sending agency, the churches that are supporting them, love them, have all of the best wishes for them. And guess what? If they can trust us, they'll talk to us. How many more are going to go back into the field if that's the case? I can't give you a percentage, but we know that it's got to be something other than zero. I can't imagine that if we were to do it as a broad stroke, national intentional process, I can't imagine it wouldn't improve the numbers by 20%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. That's really the point that I was trying to make is that, it would be an impact that was noteworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you would be able to
it's such an easy thing to make that big of an impact.
Right. Absolutely. I believe that's true. Yeah.
So then the next level after that was the mental health counselor or coach.
Right.
what does so for that $56 with the scholarship, do I as a church, how many people am I allowed to, or how many people is that, like per person, or is that just
As many as you want. One of the
church
things,
wide?
it's church wide, and it's as
Okay.
many people as the pastor or the leadership can find that would be functional in that area. One of the things that we do is as we're having people go through the mental health coaching program, we use them internally in our ministry, in our counseling ministry, for various things. We have people who run groups. We have a group specifically for people who are enablers and who don't know how to set boundaries. We have mental health coaches who teach that program. They are more equipped at teaching that program because they have a better understanding of mental health, how it affects a person spiritually, how spiritual difficulties affect someone's mental health. What are the particular details of those? Guess what? The people who are teaching that particular group, who are running that group, were teaching that group before, but now their group is operating so much better that the information that's getting put out and the understanding of why it's important to put this information out is improved or increased. The pastor, the counselors, me as the director of that program can have great appreciation for the fact that they know a little bit about what I know.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't have to go in and teach it. I don't have to go in and solve problems. Listen, it's still a supervised, program. The mental health coaches who work within our ministry are supervised by me. The nice thing about that is then they're covered under our malpractice insurance, which if you know me very well, I really need malpractice insurance. Okay, just kidding. But the reality of it is if they're certified mental health coaches, then they're going to fall nicely into, and the church can be a little bit more comfortable that the liability insurance that they have is going to be more on the side of the church and the mental health coach. They're going to be anyway, because obviously the insurance company works for the church.
Right.
But having someone there who knows the ins and the outs, the ethics, and all of that is a great benefit to the church. So then they can be taught, they can be sent in the direction of specializing. One of the things that we'll be doing eventually is helping churches identify the avenues that they need to have their mission or their coaches follow to get them to be the best they can be in the area the church needs them to serve. So if it's marriage and family, then we want to help them, get involved with the parents, for example, and become certified, marriage mentors, which takes a weekend. Now they're certified mental health coaches. They have a strong understanding of the benefits that the church can provide through mentoring, directly to people. That benefits the church overall. It's got to we believe that will make the churches have stronger marriage support programs. If you're trying to do something the church has a lot of difficulty with and trying to establish a strong divorce care ministry, there are classes then additional that people can go through to be able to do that. And then, of course, anybody who wants to make sure that their certified mental health coaches are well prepared for serving missionaries, you then send them through the AMPS program.
Nice.
And actually, I mean that. I really do mean that. I think it's a good program to send someone through as they're studying that or once they've completed it, because now they're going to be able to take those connections, the things that have been taught specifically in the member care section of it. They're going to be able to take those things and, oh, I understand why they're teaching that in AMP. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Or, hey, I could easily correlate that to what I learned about personality in this particular module. So all in all, it's a great program, a great system.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I can give you the email address so that you can send off and find out how you too can be a scholarship possessor.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'd like to get that information so we can put that out there for everybody. Well, gosh, that was a ton. I felt like
sorry.
That was good. No, nothing to apologize for. That was very good. Before we go, I guess, What kind of resources? I know we touched on some. I don't know if you have any other resources that, books or something that churches might want to read, or something they can get their hands on that would be very helpful to them.
Yeah, I think anything that covers narrative therapy, it's easy to find any information on that online. It's a very basic technique, if you will. I'm not really aware of anything that isn't academic level narrative therapy stuff, if you will. I think that the biggest thing that churches would benefit from is just making sure that they have an understanding that they need to be intentional about serving their missionaries. And again, it's so important that we acknowledge every level of missionary service. That's the important thing. So as far as getting people to talk, any of us are able to do that. I think that really is the crux of it. Okay. No, I don't have any books that I can recommend at this point, mainly because you didn't ask me in advance if I could have some.
But off the top of your head, any books about missionary care that you just think, wow, that was a great book. That would be.
Yeah, anything on missionary care is good.
Okay.
Okay. You probably are better equipped to come up with those.
That's all right.
To be honest with you, my research is counseling based. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest areas that we concern ourselves with, and I would spend the same amount of time with a missionary as I would spend with any counselee, teaching them about personal boundaries. Okay, and I know that really is crossing us out into another direction. But if you want a book that I believe every single one of us would benefit from, I'll give you two ways you can go with that. Number one is Cloud and Townsend's Boundaries. Simple as that. Cloud and Townsend's Boundaries. I'm sure you guys have a copy of that in your house somewhere. It will teach them everything they know about setting personal boundaries, setting boundaries for those people who are connecting with them. That includes the people that are in the country of service that they're in. That kind of thing. It helps establish good, strong marital boundaries. That can be a problem. It has been a problem in the past from time to time with missionaries. And I'm not talking really about fidelity so much as I am talking about how much attention do I give my spouse, who's not the primary, mainly, maybe in the thing. It's one of the things that we talked about statistically is the number of marriages that fail through missionary services. And I believe missionary service, I believe a lot of that is because they're not both involved in the mission, in what's going on in the mission. And so the Boundary series would help with that. We also have a series on our website, which I can provide you. It's a YouTube series on boundaries, biblical boundaries. It's a video series, 6 lessons on how the Lord set boundaries, and it considers New and Old Testament to kind of prepare. One of the things that we have a problem with, we're getting off the subject, but one of the things that we tend to have a problem with is, especially in the evangelical church, I'm supposed to love my neighbor as I love myself. Can't have any boundaries in that deal. Okay, you want to watch our video series to find out about that, because that's not really the case. It's not healthy just to be all out. So anyway, Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. Sorry, I don't have more. I mean, we have.
That's okay.
There's a Missionary Family is one.
Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about, that you felt like something the church might still need to hear in this conversation?
We have gotten through page 4 of a 99-page study, so I'll let you know.
Yeah. All right. Did you just set us up for a part 2?
Could happen. It's a new ongoing research project, so we'll see where it all ends up.
Okay.
Mainly what we're after is finding those things, and this is what the narrative therapy will do, finding those hidden away things that don't even seem like a big deal to the counselee, to the missionary. They just don't even seem like a big deal. And then all of a sudden, as you start to unlock these things, there's an epiphany. wow, this has really had a profound effect on me. The research has been done, but it's only been done on cancer patients. And we're going to take this and bring it over into other parts of care. So yeah, maybe a part 2.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking some time today
Thanks for
to chat
having
with
me.
us, and
Yep.
appreciate everything you've had to say. I appreciate just sharing this knowledge, and just trying to help the church.
Sure. That's
So,
our goal.
yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, this has been another edition of the Summer Spotlight. I hope you guys enjoyed all this information, and can hopefully we can see some churches really start caring for their members, and not just the members here, but the members that are there as well.